What's up, guys? Jordan McAbee here, fantasyracingonline.com, and today we're going to talk about Richmond and the Toyota Owners 400 DFS. Richmond Raceway, another flat track. 3 of the first 9 races of the year on flat tracks, and I really like Richmond. And this race I think is going to be a really good one. There's a lot of ways that you can build lineups this week, and I think it's going to make it very interesting for fantasy NASCAR players all over when it comes to making picks. I think there's a lot of ways that this race can go. Last year, we only raced at Richmond once. Brad Keselowski led almost 200 of the 400 laps, ended up winning it. That was also at night, though. So we haven't had a day race here at Richmond like we are this weekend since, I believe, 2017, which is obviously noteworthy. Last week, Martin Truex Jr. didn't have a race-winning car until the sun went down. We all know how good he is at night, and we all know how good he is in flat tracks, but that's too... Yes, he's 2 for 2 when it comes to winning on flat tracks this year. But by no means did Truex dominate those races. And what I'm getting at here is, and we're going to get into this with this video and everything, is what exactly to expect of Truex. Because I think that's really going to be a pivotal point in fantasy NASCAR this week, is what you do with Truex. So you look at Phoenix, Truex wasn't there till the second half of the race, and it got later in the day, and then he won. Logano dominated for most of that race, and Truex took it at the end. Martinsville, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin all day. Truex took it when the sun went down. It got dark. I do not think Truex would have won that race without the red flag. I really don't. But all that matters is Truex won, and that's what we have to look at. Now at Richmond, we come and look at Richmond. So Truex is on the pole. Denny Hamlin starts second. We look at Richmond, and if you're a betting person, and Truex opened at 4-1, you could get him at I think I got him at 475 at PointsBet today. Which, by the way, alert, the Jordan Jinx is on Truex this week, so just take that into account. It was on Logano last week. It's on Truex this week. But you look at anybody that's just looking at the data that we have and making a bet or making a fantasy pick. You look at Truex. He's finished 3rd or better in the last 4 races here at Richmond. He's led 100 or more laps in 6 of the last 8. He's starting on the pole. He has the best pit stall this week. He's won the 2 flat track races this year. This seems like the biggest no-brainer of all time, yet I personally am finding myself talking myself out of Truex this week. And we'll get to why. I have my reasons, more than just the jinx. But let's take a look at, so main things to look at this week are, in my opinion, are flat track data over the last year or two, and then Richmond data. So Richmond data is a little interesting, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Like I said, this is the first day race we've had at this track in a while. And a lot of things change over 4 years. So you kind of have to, obviously we're going to look at Richmond data and the night races because we have to. But also, I'm focusing a lot on who is running well this season because I think that can make a big difference in a few pivotal places here between a few drivers. But anyway, so Richmond, flat track. I've been screaming this for 3 races now. We know who is good at flat tracks. We know who is fast at flat tracks. We know who is good at Richmond. We know who's fast at Richmond. Try not to overthink this too much, even though it's probably going to seem like I might be doing it. But stay with me here. All right. So looking at the last 2 years of Richmond data, 3 races. Average running position, Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski, both under 4. Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, both struggling this year, both very good at this track. Logano, Denny Hamlin, Kurt Busch, Chase Elliott, kind of disappointing, honestly. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Chase Elliott, I am very interested to see what his ownership looks like, especially in DraftKings. But last 3 races, average finish, Keselowski, Truex, Kyle Busch, Logano. Again, flat tracks. The guys that run well finish up front. It happens every single time. We know who is good at these racetracks. Try not to overthink this. Fastest laps over the last 3 races at Richmond, Kyle Busch 142, Kevin Harvick 110, Keselowski 100, and then it's pretty spread out from there. One thing to note about Richmond is the fastest laps, I'd say, are kind of unpredictable. Not in the sense of Daytona and Talladega unpredictable, but for example, at Martinsville last week, we knew who was going to get a good chunk of fastest laps. We knew who was going to get a good chunk of fastest laps at Phoenix. We knew who was going to get fastest laps at Atlanta. Richmond, when you look at, here is, that's not what I was looking for. Bear with me here. Of course I don't. So let's go. This is last year's loop data from the race last year. So Keselowski dominated. He had 44 fastest laps. Wasn't the most fastest laps in that race, which is, not typical from someone that dominates the race like he did. Kevin Harvick had more fastest laps, 49, as did Austin Dillon last year. Hamlin was 17, Matt Kenseth with 13, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. with 31. So what happens a lot here at Richmond is sometimes drivers like Stenhouse will split the stages, get fresh tires, do pit strategy in these stages, and once they get out there on fresh tires, they get fastest laps, and they try to take advantage of that and get a lucky break. That can obviously mess with things in DFS. But it's still noteworthy that, Martin Truex Jr. last year finished second. He had 11 fastest laps. That's it. And if you look back at Truex here, this is overall. I did not get my tab set up right. So we look back at the last 2 years of Richmond data, 3 races. Truex has an average finish of 1.3 and only 89 fastest laps. Yes, 89 fastest laps are still a significant number. You can't deny that. But at the same time, average finish of 1.3 and you only have 89 fastest laps. Meanwhile, Austin Dillon has 85. Something's not noteworthy with Truex. I did go back and look at the 2018 races of fastest laps. So Truex in the fall of 2018 had the most fastest laps, followed by Kyle Busch, Harvick, Keselowski. And these are the numbers not included in the chart I was just showing. That's why I have these separate. Again, we got Stenhouse here at 19, which is noteworthy. And then the spring race, Stenhouse with 39, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch. Again, Truex, not a ton of fastest laps. I swear I'm not making a case against Truex, but I kind of am. Now, in addition to fastest laps kind of being spread out here, we typically see 2 dominators here at Richmond, and I would say mini dominators is kind of how I think of it. So there'll typically be like 2 drivers that lead 90 or more laps, and then like 3 drivers that lead 50 laps, if that kind of makes sense. So last year was a little different. Keselowski led 192, Austin Dillon led 55, and then Hamlin, Logano, and Harvick all led in the mid-40 range. The race before that, Kyle Busch 202, Truex 103, Keselowski 89, 3 dominator race. And this obviously comes into play on how we're going to build lineups this week, especially in DraftKings. First race 2019, Truex 186, Kyle Busch 101, Logano, Keselowski, and Harvick all in that 30 to 50 range. Again, 2 doms, 3 mini dominators. Is about the best way that I can describe this. Second race 2018, Truex 163, Kyle Busch 92, Keselowski 67, Harvick 40, Chase Elliott 34. Again, not like crazy dominator numbers by some of these lower guys, but enough to make a difference in DFS, obviously. And we'll look at this first race 2018, Truex 121, Kurt Busch 98, Logano 92. So I would call this a 3 dominator race. Obviously 45 for Boyer then, and then Kyle Busch 32. So as you can see, there's typically 5, I don't want to say significant dominators, but like to me 40 laps is pretty significant in DFS. That's an extra 10 points in DraftKings. So definitely something to consider this week when making lineups. Let's get into... So I'm going to do things a little bit different this week. I'm going to kind of talk about specific drivers because lineup... I'll talk overall about lineup construction, but I want to really get into some of these drivers this week. Let's go here. My algorithm predicted finishing order. Obviously, like, the Truex is a complete no-brainer. If anybody's saying Truex isn't going to be a contender this race, they're just being cute. They're doing it to be different intentionally, and it's not. You can do that at some races and at some tracks, but Truex at Richmond and Truex at a flat track, like what? If anyone's telling you that, you should really question where you're getting your information. It's probably the same type of people that call Eldora with a space in between. But Truex predicted the winner here. Kyle Larson second. I love Kyle Larson. If you've paid attention to my Twitter this week, I'm all over Kyle Larson, which I think a lot of NASCAR betting Twitter is on Larson as well this week. But absolutely love Larson. Denny Hamlin predicted to finish third. All 3 very close there, as you can see in the power index. And then we got Logano, Elliott, Keselowski close. Byron projected to finish 7th. He's having a great season. Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick. Talked about them. Great track history, but struggling this year. And then my algorithm actually has Ryan Blaney projected to finish 10th, which would be a career best finish for Ryan Blaney. I do not agree with this at all, and I actually noted it in the article. So make sure you check that out. Why such a good flat track racer like Ryan Blaney, I don't think can even get a top 10. So let's look at now let's get into DraftKings. My article went up Friday, got the projection. So I'm basically projecting this as a 3 dominator race between Truex, Hamlin, and Larson. And I mentioned that up here in my dominator part. Truex, Hamlin, Larson. I think Logano has a chance at dominating Chase Elliott a little bit, Keselowski a little bit, and then I think we could see some surprise dominators this week, including Kyle Busch, as weird as that is to say, William Byron, Christopher Bell, Austin Dillon. But with how these projections ended up, Truex, Hamlin, and Larson all above 80 points. Truex and Hamlin up top, super close, but both over 90 points. So if you throw my projections into an optimizer, it's going to spit out Truex, Hamlin, Larson into the same lineup. And it actually spits out top lineup that it spits out is Truex, Hamlin, Larson, Stenhouse, who I wrote up as a GPP play, and then Corey LaJoy and Justin Haley. I don't love and don't hate that lineup by any means. Especially, like, it's tough taking the front row, first and second. I love Kyle Larson this week, but taking first and second in DraftKings is risky as hell. With that being said, it's hard not to imagine those three guys, Truex, Hamlin, Larson, like battling all race for the Dominator points. But that's just what my projections have. I like going more 2 Dominator lineup this week, maybe 3 sometimes, but I don't love the 3 Dominator lineup this week for what that's worth. But we're going to go ahead and kind of go driver by driver a little bit. We'll get more in depth in some, less in depth in others. But there's a lot to talk about this week. There's a lot how this race could play out and where you can go DFS wise. So we'll get into that real quick. So Brad Keselowski is priced. I'm going to have trouble with that all season. It's so stuck in my head. Keselowski, when really it's Keselowski. Anyway, Keselowski, starting 20th. Definitely, I think, should have a top 5 car. You look at his history here. Obviously, he dominated that race last year. We know Penske is very good at Richmond and flat tracks. You look at flat tracks last year, Keselowski had the second best finish. He had the third best average running position, third most laps led over here between Elliott, Logano, and Keselowski. Obviously, that's weighted heavily for Elliott, at least at Martinsville. And then the second most fastest laps Keselowski had behind Elliott. So I could see Keselowski being under-owned this week just because he's priced so high. Anytime DraftKings prices a place differential driver like this so high, they typically don't get the ownership, even with his track record. Even more going against Keselowski this week is his, I'd say, lack of... He hasn't been great this year, and especially lately. 33rd, 11th, and 28th the last 3 weeks. Martinsville last week, he didn't have that great of a car at all. And then 11 fastest laps over the last 3 races overall. Not to mention his disappointing race at Phoenix. I'm not sure that team really has what it takes right now to get the Dominator points to pay off that salary. Obviously, like I said, his track record here is very good at Richmond. Constant top 10 threat, if not top 5. Last 2 races, top 5. He's grabbed the lead in the last 4 races. He's also started up front these last, he typically starts up front. So, my mindset with Keselowski this week is I think he's too high priced, but in some contests, maybe like a single entry or a 3 entry max contest or a qualifier, I could definitely see rolling the dice with him and maybe even pairing him up with a Truex or a Hamlin or a Larson, or even going like Keselowski, Truex, Larson in a lineup, and you're really gonna. I don't even think you can put a decent. Leaves you 5,400, so you'd have to grab Haley, and then probably Alfredo and LaJoy or Priest. So with this lineup, you're absolutely going to need Keselowski to get. So if you put this lineup in like a single entry, your differentiator with from a lot of other lineups is going to be Keselowski, obviously. So what you're going to need is Truex and Larson to get those early Dominator points, and then Keselowski to move up and get the Dominator points. You're going to need all three of them to get Dominator points, is what I'm getting at. Which is, I mean, that's your strategy with any three Dominator lineup, but even more so with Keselowski and that high price tag. Him going from 20th to 5th and finishing there isn't going to get him in the optimal lineup this week. If he doesn't get the Dominator points, you might as well, if you're doing that, you might as well go with a Logano or someone lower, save that cash. So you don't have to go with Justin Haley and Alfredo and Ryan Preece. It's not very likely that's going to work out. Second highest, Martin Truex Jr. Like I said, we know how good this guy is. We know how good he is here. My only knock on him, I have a few. One, I put the Jordan jinx on him. So, noteworthy. If you don't believe it, then that's on you, because now that I'm tracking it this year, I still have people messaging me and being like, not believing it. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, he was also RotoDoc's random fantasy NASCAR pick this week, which is completely cursed as well. If you don't follow him, make sure you follow him on Twitter at RotoDoc and subscribe to his content. It's really good stuff. He took a year or two off. I think it was just a year off from NASCAR, but he's back and on point with his projections lately, especially last week, and only going to get better. Not to mention Talladega coming up next week. That guy is one of the best, if not the best, at Daytona and Talladega. He's with Fantasy Labs this year, so make sure you give him a follow on Twitter and subscribe to his content, because it is top-notch, and I fully recommend it. Not to get off on that tangent there, but felt necessary. But so Truex has two jinxes working against him. Will they cancel each other out? I don't know. Another thing that I do not particularly like about Truex this week is the fact that it's a day race, and he's not particularly great at day races. So we haven't had a day race here at Richmond since 2017. You look back at Truex's races here. 2017, 0 laps led. 2016, 0 laps led. Yes, he transformed as a driver during these years, but at the same time, all of these laps led that he's put up have been in night races. It's just noteworthy. Like I said, he wouldn't have won at Martinsville last week without the red flag and that race going under the night. Yes, he had a top 5 car, but he didn't put up insane numbers last week. Truex didn't. 41 fastest laps, 20 laps led. Not phenomenal numbers. Good numbers, not phenomenal. Phoenix, that was a later race, and it got dark. I wouldn't say it obviously didn't end the other night, but it was late afternoon. And he wasn't good in the first half of the race. So what I'm concerned about with Truex is him not dominating the early portion of this race, which is what I think he needs to do. I think he needs to lead a good portion of the first part of this race. And then if he does lose the lead, get it back at the end once it, gets darker, or gets later in the day. I don't think this race is going to be, end at night. But one thing now, flip side of that coin, cooler temperatures this weekend in Richmond should help him. Plus the fact that he fucking dominates here. We can't argue that. Maybe I'm purposely trying to talk myself out of Truex this week, with him being the no-brainer. But I will say it does concern me. Going super heavy on him with Denny Hamlin starting second. As much as I dislike Denny Hamlin and think it's kind of funny that he hasn't won this year yet, he is putting up not only great finishes, but this is what I'm worried. This is what I'm really concerned about here. Are these fastest laps? 81 last week. He's always putting up double digits. 38 he didn't have a great Phoenix race. This Instacart 500. He wasn't great by any means. 38 fastest laps, 33 laps led. Started third, finished third, put up 66 points. Now he's priced up. This is his highest price of the year. But with that, I do think he can dominate, and I think he can take this lead away from Truex early on Sunday here at Richmond. And I think Hamlin can. It's been a while since he's led a lot, but one, and again, this was a night race. But last year he had a really good car last year. Got hit from speeding on pit road because he's Denny Hamlin. But just the way that car's running this year, it's hard for me not to like Denny Hamlin this week. Third most fastest laps. These are the totals for this year. Third most fastest laps this year. And then average running position, Denny Hamlin number 1, Kyle Larson number 2. And green flag speed, Truex, Hamlin, significantly better than most in green flag speed. So, like I said, that's why I have these two. That's one of the reasons why I have these two projected as the two dominators this week, because they are the best cars this year, Truex and Hamlin. It's going to come down to probably how much they dominate on Sunday, and whether, like I said, it's so difficult DFS wise to put not only the pole sitter, because the pole sitter has been awful this year for DFS players, but putting first and second together in a lineup, that's, I don't know the stats on that, but I'd have to say it rarely works out. Part of the reason why I like guys like Kyle Larson and next guy up, Joey Logano, so much this week. So Joey Logano, starting 5th, obviously. Keselowski, great in Penske car last year. So that is reassuring in my mind, that Logano can have a good race this week. Top 5 in 5 of the last 7 at Richmond. He's won here before, won twice. I don't like that he won. I don't know if it's OCD or I notice patterns a lot, and I don't like this pattern of every other race that he doesn't lead any laps. But at the same time, you can't discount the fact that Logano led the most laps at Phoenix, which is the most comparable track to Richmond. So if we go and look at, I must have completely forgot to. Sorry about this. So we go to Phoenix green flag speed this year. Hamlin, Logano, Keselowski, Truex, Larson, Blaney, Harvick, Bell, Byron, Chase Elliott. When it came to green flag speed. Another reason why I think Hamlin can be a big dominator this week is this. And of course, Joey Logano can get it done. It's just which one shows up. I will not lie and say that it's a bit concerning that he's only had 2 races this year with significant fastest laps. And even then, Penske overall doesn't put up a ton of fastest laps. But if Logano gets to the lead at 10-6, he's probably going to be, in the optimal lineup if he leads a good chunk of this race. Kyle Larson next. Love Kyle Larson this week. I see him definitely competing for the win and definitely competing for a good chunk of Dominator points. I don't think I need to say much on Larson. Rule of thumb, if he was good in Ganassi equipment, he's going to be great in Hendrick equipment, and he was good in Ganassi equipment. Just an absolute fantasy stud this year. And, yeah, I mean, I think he's underpriced. Hopefully, I'm obviously not great at projecting ownership by any means, especially, just off the cuff on my head. I've started working on it, including it in my articles this year. But again, I'm not great at that, but very interested to see what Kyle Larson's ownership is this week, because he could easily be the highest owned driver this week, as much as so many people are talking him up. So could there be a strategy play there to not pick him? Absolutely, if that's the case. As always, I always recommend, listening to as many people as possible in the DFS world and trying to get an edge that way to see who's talking up who. And if everybody's talking up the same guy, chances are their ownership's going to get bumped up. There's a couple guys in this industry that have serious pull. If they say to pick someone, there's a lot of people that do it. And to pay attention to that and do the opposite can sometimes really help you in DFS. If you get on the other side of the coin and their pick doesn't work out. But next up, Kyle Busch. Obviously, he has a great record here. I said it last week. I'm just waiting for the old Kyle Busch to show up. And I don't know. These numbers, even when he finished 5th at Atlanta, 15 fastest laps. Like, that's nothing. And I want to like Kyle Busch this week. I like Kyle Busch. I've been a Kyle Busch fan. But it's, one lap at Phoenix. Yeah, he had those speeding penalties and then he wrecked. But still, he had a fast car before that, but still no fastest laps. Only 11 fastest laps at Martinsville last week. It's hard. I'd like him more if he was priced lower than 10,000. Maybe, I might have a few lineups with him. I don't think I'm going to do the full a ton of lineups like I normally do. I don't know. I haven't really decided yet. I'm more on the betting side this week, honestly, than I am DFS. But I'm probably like, Kyle Busch started 6th, finished 6th here last year. This is kind of the race that I'm expecting out of him this weekend right here, finishing top 10. Maybe top 5 if things go right for him, which I don't think is going to get it done. He's going to need Dominator points at 10,000 in DraftKings, and I just don't see that happening. Chase Elliott, he's someone that he should be really good here, but the numbers just don't add up. Not add up, but I guess they don't make sense. I am losing all of my tabs here, and it's annoying. Anyway, Chase Elliott does not have a ton of fastest laps here at Richmond Raceway in his career. And obviously that can change in one race, but it's something to note because when you have a guy starting as high as Chase Elliott is this week, he's starting 3rd. You're going to need him to lead. You're going to need him to get fastest laps. That's just how it works. A 3rd place finish out of him doesn't get it done unless the Dominators are these guys in this range, and unless we get Larson dominating, or unless we get like one Dominator, I guess is the best way to put it. If we get one Dominator, then I could see Chase Elliott being in the optimal lineup. But other than that, it's I'm not a huge fan of Chase Elliott and DraftKings this weekend. That's another guy that I'm very interested to see his ownership, because this season, not surprising at all, Chase Elliott has the highest average ownership percentage since Daytona. I didn't include Daytona, but averaging this week this year through the last 7 races, 26.4%. Barely a little bit higher than Hamlin at 26.02%. But Elliott never lower than 16% either, and a high of 42. But Chase, he gets the fan favorite bump in DFS, and now he's underpriced for where he normally is. I could definitely see him being over-owned this week in DraftKings for sure, and I will no doubt have less than the field on Elliott. on Sunday. Kevin Harvick, I see no reason why Stuart Haas is suddenly going to have speed this weekend. I want to like Harvick. He has a really good track record here, just like Kyle Busch does, and I think he might be able to pull off a top 5. 7th or better in the last 5 here, but never really. Even when he had a great car, he was never great at Richmond. You look at these numbers, yeah, he gets good finishes here. Never more, like highest lap led total over the last 8 here is 41. And that was last year when he started on the pole. So to think that now in a down year for him, he's going to replicate those numbers and even come close, I don't see it happening at all. So Harvick, I'm so in on throwing Larson into lineups this week that I'm not paying a ton of attention into this. I could see, if you don't want to go Larson, go in Harvick and hoping he gets top 5. I mean, that's a great price for him in DraftKings, but I still don't love it. I still, Bowman, Cindric, these guys down here, I'd rather go to them over Harvick. Ryan Blaney next, starting 7th, 9,100. One of these times I'm going to be wrong about Ryan Blaney, but the guy sucks at Richmond. I do not know why. I can't explain it. It makes no sense. He's great at flat tracks. Penske is great at Richmond. He just sucks at this track. And it doesn't matter when. He sucked as a Wood Brothers driver. He sucked at Penske. Like I said, one of these times he's going to get the finish here. And it could be this weekend. Hell, I don't know. I put a very big bet on Christopher Bell over Ryan Blaney at plus 120 this week. So with the way that my bets go and the jinxing that goes along with it, this very well could be the race that Ryan Blaney goes out there and gets a top 5 at Richmond. But the fact of the matter is he's never finished better than 17th here, and he's never ran well here. His highest driver rating in 9 starts is 72.8. Just absolute shit. And like I said, it doesn't make sense. I don't get it. You'd think the blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, but Ryan Blaney's still blind. I don't know. Maybe running in the day is going to help him. I don't know. But if anybody is recommending Ryan Blaney on anything other than a whim this year or this week, is interesting to say the least. But that can always be, that can be what wins you a tournament. Just to look at this other side of the coin. Maybe Ryan Blaney goes out there and gets it done. I don't see it happening. I might have 1 or 2 lineups with him in it, but nope. I'm just going to assume that he still sucks at Richmond like he has every single time that he's raced here. Alex Bowman starts 24th. I love Alex Bowman every week. He's one of my favorite drivers. He's won me a lot of money in DFS. My projections really like him over Cindric this week. Cindric's obviously the safer option starting 38th, but at the same time, Bowman has legitimate top 10 potential and a little bit of Dominator potential, whereas Cindric, a really good race out of Cindric on Sunday is going to be top 15. So I think Cindric's a little bit higher price than he needs to be, while Bowman is a little riskier. So take that for what it is. Maybe you don't go with either of those guys and you jump down here to some of these others in this price range, which we'll talk about now. So William Byron, he's another one of those guys that really hasn't had a great career at Richmond. Starting 4th, I talk about him a lot of weeks and being a potential outside dominator. I again listed him this week as that, or as a potential, surprise dominator. I don't have a ton of confidence in that. He's never been great here, but he did finish 12th in his first race. With the way that team's running this year, I think he could, get a top 10 this week. But I'm just not seeing a ton of upside with Byron. No need to go heavy on him by any means. Kurt Busch, as I was doing my research, I don't know what's happened to Kurt Busch, but he's sucked lately. He's absolutely sucked lately, which could make him fly under the radar this weekend, just because he's disappointed so often. But at the same time, like, he disappoints every week. So why would it change? Especially when you look at Richmond here, last 5 races, 0 top 10s from Kurt. I'm not seeing a ton of upside there. Eric Almirola is an interesting one, and once again, shout out to RotoDoc. He put, and I retweeted a few of his tweets tonight, but I'm going to go find them here quick. So he had Almirola as his Paul Menard pick of the week, which I completely agree with, especially now that he was talking about it. And like I said, all credit to him for pointing this out. Almirola really wasn't on my radar until I was looking at this, or until I saw his tweets. But, you look here, you can see on the screen, Almirola at Richmond, Phoenix, New Hampshire, in his Stewart Haas ride under low downforce, so 2018, 2020, 2021, average finish of 8.3. Can't really ignore that. Is he running that good this year? Probably not. Did he finish 11th at Phoenix? Yes. Has he had a lot of bad luck this year? Yes. So it's something to consider, obviously, if you want to get off that Bowman-Cindric chalk, coming down here to Almirola. I like guys a little bit underpriced better, but you can definitely make a case for Eric Almirola. Same with Matt DiBenedetto. Penske at Richmond, just solid. Last year, DiBenedetto finished 17th in his Wood Brothers car, finished 14th in Levine car in 2019. I really like how this team's running, though, now that they're getting that bad luck out of their way, or they got that bad luck out of their way. Between 11th and 14th in the last 4 races, I think DiBenedetto could get his first top 10 of the season this weekend. I don't think it's by any means a guarantee, but there's potential there, and again, get you off some of that chalk of Cindric Bowman. Christopher Bell wrote him up. I've been talking about Christopher Bell all week. I really like Christopher Bell this week. I haven't looked at anybody else's stuff really to see if anybody else is talking up Christopher Bell. I don't think he's going to be super high owned this week just because he starts 8th and he really doesn't put up, the Dominator points to make that salary worth it. But at the same time, I do think that I honestly think Christopher Bell could legitimately run top 5 and lead a portion of this race. He has Adam Stevens as his crew chief, who did phenomenal things here with Kyle Busch. Plus, Christopher Bell was really, really good at this track in his Xfinity Series ride. So looking at the flat tracks this year, finished 7th last week at Martinsville, 14 fastest laps, finished 9th at Phoenix, 10 fastest laps. Definitely like Christopher Bell, even though he's starting 8th. Eric Jones, starting 30th, so there's definitely upside. I don't love him by any means, You look at his track record here. He was decent in Gibbs equipment. He's not in Gibbs equipment anymore. And you look at Bubba Wallace, how he did in this Richard Petty Motorsports car. He did have a 12th place finish here, but everything else was absolute garbage. Jones at Phoenix, 20th. That's probably about where I'd put him this week, on the high side. I don't think 20th place finish out of Eric Jones at 7,600 gets it done this week. Austin Dillon, I can't wait to see how many people actually talk about him. And that'll probably determine my strategy with him and how much I have. Austin Dillon, he probably had the best car here last year. I'm not going to lie. I don't like the guy. But he's really good at this racetrack and has been lately. 6th or better in 3 of the last 4. Also has a 15th there. That car's running really well this year, including last week at Martinsville. Austin Dillon had legitimate top 5 speed at Martinsville last week. You don't say that very often. Finished, doesn't quite get the finishes this year, but could definitely get it done at Richmond this weekend. I like Austin Dillon this week in both FanDuel and DraftKings. I really like this. I'll be honest. This, like $7,000 to $8,000 price range. I typically do not have many drivers. When I'm constructing a DraftKings lineup, I really like this price range this week. I think there's a ton of value there, and I think that can be where tournaments are won, is in this price range. I'm definitely going to be targeting this price range more than normal. Bubba Wallace will not be targeting him at all. We just went over him a little bit. Starting 15th, 7,300. Complete fade for me. Tyler Reddick, he finished 11th here last year. He's just so damn inconsistent. Like 3 top 10s and 5 outside of the top 20. Just I think you have to have some exposure to him if you're doing any kind of volume in lineups, but it's tough. Definitely a pivot, off of Austin Dillon or off of Ryan Newman, who we'll talk about now. Ryan Newman's really good here at Richmond, and obviously Roush Fenway is good at flat tracks. Which Ryan Newman shows up and finishes is yet to be seen, but 2 top 10s in the last 3, even when he was here with Richard Childress, always solid. So Newman, I have him as like a mid-teens car, 7,000. He's going to probably need to get like a 12th place finish to make that $7,000 salary worth it. I think he's capable of that. My only concern is, like, again, it's Ryan Newman, inconsistent. I'll have exposure, but I won't have a ton. Cole Custer, I can definitely see playing him. He starts 21st, a couple spots worse than Newman, saves you $200 in salary. Flat tracks last year, Custer was decent, and we go through this every time. Last week at Martinsville we talked about it, Phoenix we talked about it. Custer is decent on flat tracks. It's just how much do you trust Stewart-Haas? So Custer finished 18th at Martinsville last week. What a picture. Cole Custer looks like someone named Cole Custer. You look back at Phoenix, he sucked for the first part of that race. He was up to 15th. And then I think Bubba Wallace put him in the wall, and that cost me a qualifying seat. That was rough. Good thing I got it the next week at Atlanta, but still tough. Custer, has about teens upside, I'd say. Not my favorite play in this price range on DraftKings by any means. Suarez wrote him up. I think he's a great play this week. And I actually, if I remember right, if you listen to, I was on the Full Tank with Phil podcast this week, and we talked about Richmond, and he specifically asked me about Daniel Suarez versus Chase Briscoe, and my problem with Briscoe is and he admitted it. He didn't admit it, but he talked about it this week. I saw somewhere, some video. Briscoe basically said that he spends the first 3 quarters of these races learning, and then he gets it in the final quarter. And that's fine. It works at speedways, 1.5-mile tracks, where he can, get 1 lap down or get back on the lead lap with a good time caution or a well-timed caution and get a, top 20 finish. That's not going to work as well or as easily here at Richmond, because he's going to go 2, 3, 4 laps down as he's learning in the first, starting 26th. We have yet, I don't think we've seen a race where Stewart-Haas hasn't sucked at the beginning of it. So could definitely see him getting lapped multiple times in the first run. We don't get a lot of cautions here at Richmond. It's another thing to consider. So definitely, I like Suarez. Don't love Briscoe. But at the same time, I think you need exposure to him at this price point of 6,400, just because, he is typically right around 20th, and with a few lucky breaks, he could end up finishing in the teens this week. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wrote him up, tournament play. Definitely like him. It could end up being a cash play for all I know. Maybe everybody else is going to be on him as well at this $6,200 price point. For some reason, the guy always puts up fastest laps here at Richmond. And I didn't notice till earlier today. He's like, for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., these are top 15s in every race since the Daytona road course, which, by the way, he sucks at road courses and still finished 18th. No finish worse than 18th this year. Just a great season going by Stenhouse right now. Obviously, he's due for a wreck probably, but can you pass him up at 6,200? I don't think I'll be able to, especially in tournaments. Like I said, though, I really want to see how other people are talking him up. But even, his track record here at Richmond is pretty solid, even when he wasn't running well. Always a teens finisher, and you can't pass up that upside. 6,200, a couple lucky breaks, and he finishes 12th. Absolutely worth 6,200. Chris Buescher's at 6,100, full fade for me. And I typically like Chris Buescher, but when you have a track record like he does at Richmond, like, what is there to like? There's no upside there at all. Ross Chastain probably starts a little bit too high for me. That's about where I project him to finish, is 18th. Not great. McDowell, there's a lot of value in this under $6,000 price range. My favorite guy down here is Ryan Preece. I like how that car is running this year. I like that Ryan Preece has top 20s in 2 of his 3 starts here at Richmond. Where's he at? Work smarter, not harder. So, yeah, finish 30th. You're always going to have that risk with Preece finishing, bad. But 20th in 2 of his 3 starts is noteworthy for sure. And at 5,600 and starting 25th, I think Preece, I would actually probably run him in cash. I almost wrote him up as a cash play this week. That's how much I have faith in him. You can always, Corey LaJoie, safe option. We saw what he could do last week. Try not to think that he's suddenly going to be a top 15 car here at Richmond. He's not very good at Richmond, but at the same time, he's consistent. He finishes high 20s, 27th, 29th, 26th in his last 3 starts here. Probably about the same upside this week for LaJoie. And honestly, Alfredo, I don't see a ton of upside there. Starting 29th, I would rather, honestly, Justin Haley is, I think, definitely in play this week. Finished 24th at Phoenix, mid-30 or high 20s for most of the races this year. Starting 34th, 5,200. I could definitely see playing plenty of Justin Haley this week to fit up those dominators. Or to fit in those dominators, those high-priced dominators this weekend. As far as the back markers, there's not a single one I like. Maybe BJ McLeod, but probably not. I could see, and I advocated for playing them a little bit at Martinsville last week. That's just not the case here at Richmond. We're not going to see those guys move up very much. But yeah, let's move over to FanDuel a little bit. Briefly talk about this. I'm not too excited about FanDuel this week for whatever reason. Most weeks I am. Similar projections though for FanDuel and DraftKings. So FanDuel, Truex projected highest 91.92. Hamlin, Logano, Larson, Keselowski, Bowman. Pretty much the same. One thing to know, by the way, is ceiling. And let's run back over to DraftKings quick. Truex, I haven't projected at 94.9. I have a ceiling at 170. I could see him absolutely crushing and dominating this race, leading 300-plus laps and doing what Truex has done in the past. So just something to note there. But according to my projections, the top lineup in FanDuel is Truex, Hamlin, Larson, Austin Cindric, and Eric Jones. I don't like this much at all. I don't like Eric Jones. I'm surprised he projected as well as he did for me, or in my FanDuel projections. I don't like him. I like going more of a 2 Dominator build this week in FanDuel. Kind of going with, I love Larson this week. That's no surprise. I really like, Christopher Bell down here, Alex Bowman. When you throw those 2 in the lineup and then throw in a, maybe like an Almirola, that can get you up to getting a Logano, or if you didn't want to go Logano, go take off Bell and grab like an Austin Dillon. That can get you up to Keselowski or Hamlin, or work it around, instead of Austin Dillon, go Tyler Reddick, and instead of Hamlin, go Truex. I do like that kind of build this week with DraftKings. But again, I'm not as of Friday night, I'm not as confident in FanDuel as I have been previous weeks, but maybe those typically be the weeks, or are the weeks that I end up doing really well. So, let's I forgot to do like a more central lineup here with DraftKings. So we did the one with Truex, Hamlin. Let's do Larson, and this is just one off my top of my head, I guess, is the best way to put that. So let's do Larson, Bell, Stenhouse, Austin Dillon. Nope. Just trying to see where I'm at salary-wise here. I still think talk about a tournament lineup here. Whew. Relying on Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Ryan Preece in the same lineup. Whew. Have mercy. So this one you can grab Bowman. Can get you up to Hamlin, if you wanted. Again, Justin Haley, I think, might be decent, but again, we're going to stick with Ryan Preece here. Let's go, instead of Bell, go Austin Dillon. And then Bowman. So we got Truex, Larson, Bowman, Austin Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Ryan Preece. Just something to consider. Like I said, there's lots of ways to go this week, whether you're going a 2 Dominator or 3 Dominator build. But yeah, it should be a good one. Like I said, I think we know who's going. We know who the contenders are. So now it's all just about nailing those Dominators and going from there. Yeah, I think that's all I got. Good luck this week. Thanks for paying attention. If you made it this far, thank you very much. And we'll see you back next week for Talladega, which will probably be a pretty short video. It's probably going to be, hey, don't pick the pole sitter and pick whoever you want. But, yeah, good luck and see ya.